Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know how hard it is on a normal weekday when you've just picked up the kids and everything's going crazy because you're trying to get dinner ready. So thank you very much. My name is Michael Casimovic. I'm an associate professor at the University of New South Wales, but I'm also the founder of Arludo. So it's the founder part that I'm going to be talking about today because I'll be talking about that program that you're all interested about. So before we get into that, I want to set out a couple of things so you know how things will progress this evening. We won't take up much of your time, but what we're going to do is create a show for you exactly like what your kids would be experiencing each week. And one of the things you'll notice now is although you can see me, of course I can't see you. And that's one of the reasons we've actually done that, and we've done that on purpose, is we want to do that to make sure we keep things private and safe for your kids. So your kids can see us, but there's nothing recording them and everything is safe and private for them. But of course, we want your kids to be able to interact with us. And to do that, we've set up something else, something called Slido. So Slido is something that you can use on your phone or you can use in another tab on your browser. Now what you'll notice is when we actually use Slido during the course, it's all embedded in the learning management system your kids will be using, so it's going to be even easier for them to use it than it is for you tonight. But today, if you'd like to participate in some of the polls we're going to have, so you can experience it like your kids, and if you want to ask us questions during the live stream itself, then head to Slido, so that's sli.do, and if you enter, this term or this event code 2020 term 3, that'll hook you up to this webinar that we're going on today, and you'll be able to ask questions throughout the whole time and we'll be able to answer you. Now you've noticed that I've said we'll be able to answer you, and that's because right now I'm going to bring in my co-host for the Ingenious program and Ingenious Chief Education Research Officer, Dr. Isabel Kingsley.
Hi, everyone at home. Thank you for joining us today. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Doing very well, Isabel. Thank you very much for letting us all in your home.
Yeah, no worries at all. So this is my humble home. So my name is Isabel. I'm the Chief Education and Research Officer at Arludo. I'm also a researcher at the University of New South Wales. And in my past life, I was a high school and elementary school science teacher. So so we were really excited. We've created this awesome program for your young ones at home or at school, and we want to show you what it's all about. So I think, Mike, we're going to pull up the education platform that we use during for the program. So everything that happens in the program happens within this platform called Open Learning. So you'll see that pop up very, very shortly. And it's up. Excellent. Obviously, I can't see what's going on except everything that's in my house. So everything is on Open Learning. The course is an 8-week course, and we explore all kinds of really cool ecology and biology themes and evolution themes. So we look at traits and how parents pass traits on to their offspring, and things like mimicry and adaptation and natural selection. So all these really cool and interesting concepts, we explore those throughout the 8 weeks. Each week we play a different game, and each of those games teaches a different concept. And each week those concepts build on the previous weeks so that, the learning kind of evolves, pun intended. And then progressively we work up to week 7 and 8. And in week 7 and 8, your children actually get to fully design and conduct their own investigation. They come up with their own questions and how they're going to answer them. And then as a group, we run this experiment. Now, in terms of week to week, how the course is actually structured, we have individual modules, as you can see next to us right now. So, we start off every week with an introductory module that just kind of explains what we're going to be learning that week and the game that we're going to be using so that they can download it and have that ready to go. Then we have a very short 3-minute video with Michael explaining the core concept for that week. And then we move on and we jump straight into playing the games. And by doing that, your children get to experience the game and get to experience the concepts. And then we get them to make a prediction or a hypothesis about that particular concept that's explored in the game. Next, we get them to do it again to test their hypothesis. And then eventually that leads into, and this is all on the online platform, it's all self-led, but then that leads us into the live show component for that week, which is all, again, in open learning, as you can see, and the kids can interact with Mike and I. So I think that we should just demonstrate what that looks like right now.
All right. I'm going to take over for a little bit right now, and we'll show you exactly how these games are actually played. So let's jump right into what we'll be playing today.
So Michael, I can't hear you. I don't know if people at home can hear you, but I can't hear you.
Yes, Isabel, for some reason you're echoing today. So okay. Zoom has made things very funny. So what I'll do is just mute you for a little bit, and I'll take over just for a second so I can explain to everyone how things actually work with the game. So this is one of the games that we'll be playing called Psych Tests. And if you guys actually want to play along, you guys can. If you head to Google Play or to the Apple App Store, you can download Psych Tests, and it's a game that's for free. And it'll download really quickly because it's quite small. And the really neat thing about how we set things up is it's actually quite easy for your kids to connect all the data to our dashboard. And what we do is if you hit that little button up here in the upper right hand corner, sorry, my fingers are a little bit big, and there we go, that'll slide out. And what I want you to do is type in test class into there. And what happens there is I'll do the same thing, but you notice Apple iPhones always put in a capital. So you want to make sure you don't have that capital letter there. All in lowercase, and hit done and submit. And that is going to hook up your phone or your child's phone to our system. And now what you notice is there's no logging in for your kids to do whatsoever. It's extremely simple. So once again, everything's extremely private and safe for your kids. So we'll actually play one of these games now, and we're going to be playing visual search. So I'll let you guys enter that class code, and once again, that is test class. Okay? And in the meantime, what I'll do as you guys are doing that, I'm going to explain a little bit about what we're doing today. So we're going to hit the game called visual search. And what I'm going to ask you guys to do is we will look at O and Q. So if you tap O and Q, you'll see the next screen come up. And what we're going to be looking for here is the letter O. But sometimes it's going to be amongst a whole bunch of different Qs. So what you're going to be searching for is a letter O with a whole bunch of Qs. But the interesting thing here is we're going to change the number of Qs that appear on screen. Okay? And you're going to have to try and react as quickly as possible. So when you do see a letter O, you hit the check mark. When you don't see the letter O, you hit the letter X in the bottom corner. And you want to do this as quickly as you can. So I'm going to go through this right now. So there's a letter O, so I hit the check mark. There's another one. Here's another one as well. So we'll go through this the whole time. There's a few different trials. And I realized, Isabel, we didn't do the prediction, but we can do that afterwards. So there's no Q, here it is. So this is where your students will actually be performing the actual experiment, and doing it as quickly as they can. As you can see, it's really hard for me to actually talk and concentrate and do this at the same time. So I'm gonna just try and get through this as quickly as I can. So I know I've got this wrong a couple times already. And you can see that there's a different number of cues that appear on the screen, and you're trying to look for that letter O. So I'm almost done here. So now these are my results. As you can see, it's a mess and doesn't make much sense because I've been trying to talk to you while we've been actually running this at the same time, which is actually quite tough. But hopefully you guys at home have actually played through it as well, and you've probably done a lot better than me. But what we're going to do is we're going to be able to see the data that everyone has collected together. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you guys to make a hypothesis or a prediction of what you think we're going to see. If you see on the x-axis, we have the number of letters that appear on screen. 4, 8, 16, and you can't see it under Isabel's picture there, but it says 32. And then we have a response time, or how quickly you've responded when you had those objects on screen. Now, what I'd like you guys to answer in this question that Isabel has probably set up on Slido right now, so just head to sli.do and we'll enter the code term3 2020 so you can join our event and you can answer the poll with us. And my question for you guys is going to be, how do you think the number of objects There we go. A few technical gaffes this time, but you can see me again. So now we're going to look at some of the data that you've collected today. And we will, you can see here, we'll focus on O's and Q's. And what you see on these O's and Q's is that remember, we had the number of objects on the x-axis. And if you take a look at what's going on the x-axis, is we see that red bar stays the same. And that red bar means how quickly you responded when you saw the letter O. And you notice that it doesn't change. So when you see that object on screen, you respond, doesn't matter how many objects are on screen. But, and this is normally where we would interact with your kids, we would ask them to interpret the graphs themselves, but we don't have much time here today, so I'm going to explain some of the results to you instead. And what we see is something very different with the green lines. When the target was not present, meaning there was no letter O, even though you were looking for it, the more objects on screen, the longer it took you to respond and react and say nothing was there. And this is where I would normally ask the kids, well, why do you think that it took you longer to respond when you had more objects on screen? And what we normally see in that situation is the kids answer and they say, well, I wasn't 100% sure if the O was there, so it took me longer to check, and I had to double and sometimes triple check. And that took me longer when there were more objects on screen. And this allows us to start a conversation about how our brains work, for example, how experimental designs help us understand how our brains work, and how we can interpret data like these. So this is what our program is really all about. We focus on working with your children to help them understand what data mean and how we can use data to make conclusions about the world around us. And that's really what a scientist is all about, really. So that's how we work through all of these different games with your kids. So Isabel, I tried to fix this issue with the microphones. You want to say something for me really quickly? Oh, let's see. I think you've muted yourself on your end. Oh, I think, Isabel, you're muted, so I'll just take over. Let's see, on the schedule we had. So, folks, if you have any questions now, you can answer or ask us any questions with either on YouTube into the comments section, and I can answer the questions for you there. And Isabel is actually monitoring the Slido section, so she can answer any of the questions on there for you as well. So if you have any questions there, ask us in either kind of way, and we can help you understand a little bit more about the show. So what I'll do is I'll bring us up a little bit larger so you can see me a little bit more clearly. One thing I did actually want to show you, and I know Isabel will ask me to show you this, so it is one of the research papers that our students kind of wrote collectively from last term. So we'll go there really quickly. And instead of this, what I'll show you is the research paper that together we ended up writing last term at the end of that experiment. And what we ended up doing is creating an introduction all together. And oops, and I just shut it, if you can believe that. That's hilarious. So I'll jump back out into, as you can see, there's always a few little bugs. One of the things I don't normally share with kids is documents like that, so I haven't set that up perfectly. But what we actually ended up doing is writing a whole research paper with your kids, and that's what we ended up sending to parents at the end of the term. So that means you can sit down with your kids at the end and see what they've done, talk to them about the data and the experiments that they've actually created, and have a better understanding of what's been going on through the 8 weeks. And actually what we've also done is we send you emails each week to let you know what your kids are learning each week and a little bit of the data that they end up collecting, so you can actually have a discussion at the dinner table about what they've been doing. And if your kids are anything like mine, I know dinner table discussions are often very hard to actually get going. So this is one way that we're trying to help you guys talk about science and talk about school and learning in a really fun and kind of engaging way.
I think I'm unmuted.
Okay, so
hopefully people can hear me.
Yeah, they can hear you, but for some reason you're really, Zoom
echoey.
Looks like they've changed something again.
Well, that's okay. I can not talk. I can let you talk, Mike.
Usually Isabel does much more of the talking than me, so this is a little bit of a change. So, folks, if you have any questions at all, that gives you a really good idea of how the actual show runs itself. And one thing I'd like to do is show you some of the other games that we end up playing as well. So as you can see, we've got a lot of different games that my company Arludo has actually created. And each of these games collects different types of data and answers different questions. So what your kids are doing is they're working with us directly with these different games, and each week is something different. But like Isabel mentioned, those ideas are scaffolded as we go throughout those different weeks. So that way we're building better comprehension and a better scientific understanding for your kids as they go along, ending with that scientific paper that the students write. But
so Michael, we have a question. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can.
But we have a question. Do the games cost extra?
No, they don't. All the games are free to download. If you've downloaded Psych Tests, you realize that was free. None of them cost any money, and they're always free for anyone to download at any time. So I want to show you one other game just to show you how different some of these games are. So this is one called Reservoir Crabs. And in this game, it's an augmented reality game. And we use little augmented reality tags. But your kids will just use our learning management system, so there's nothing for you to print out. As you can see, I can bring a crab to life. And I can measure this crab. It tells me how big his carapace is, his claw length, and his mass. And then I can put a second crab up there, and they can fight. So this is a really fun way for us to run experiments with your students where they're collecting real data on real animals. Because I have colleagues at ANU who work on crabs very similar to this, and we've based this game on their real research studies. So these are like real crabs that your kids will be working with. And then we can make some hypotheses and predictions, and this way will help your kids, like I mentioned, learn to think scientifically, creatively, and critically about the data they end up collecting. So each one of these games that I have here are different, and they teach a different concept in a very different way. So it's not like the same kind of thing that your kids will be learning each week. So if anyone does have any other questions, I'd be very happy to take them now. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll back out like this, and I will tell you all that our program starts next week, which is crazy that everything happens so quickly. But I do want to let everyone know that we've created a coupon code for you. And that is here, webinar 50. And you can use that coupon code on the Coursesio site, and you'll save $50 off your enrollment. So that way, it'll make it a little bit easier, you guys, to join the fun. And also, if you're in New South Wales, we also use the Creative Kids rebate from Service New South Wales, and you can get an extra $100 off this entire program. So I'll bring Isabel back onto the screen. And
we have another question. What topics do the other games teach?
So what I'll do is I'll head back to Open Learning here, and I will show you, here we go. So in the first week, we end up talking about how animals try and survive from and stay away from predators. So we'll go to the learning activities here. So first week is about predator and prey interactions and how prey try to protect themselves from getting eaten. Then we start talking about how animals compete. And this idea here is to show other ways that animals have to try and survive. And we will next talk about what it's like to be a parent and how mommy and daddy animals have to collect food for their offspring. And all these ideas kind of, and this is about how they find a mate, and all that scaffolding happens early on to get to this point where we teach students about evolution, because all those things we learned earlier are all different types of selection, or in other words, some animals survive to reproduce and some animals don't. So we help students understand what evolution is and how that happens, what that means for how animals will end up looking like, and then we go into designing our own experiment. So this first program, which is about biology, focuses largely about the natural world, how animals survive in that world, including us, and what that means for the evolution of animals and different traits. And we're creating a new program right now that'll be ready in term 4 that'll talk about human performance and cognition, which focuses mainly about psychology. So hopefully that answers that question. If you've got anything else, I'm happy to answer anything. Isabel?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you do have any other questions, you're more than welcome to email me at michael@arludo.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or you can just respond to, I believe, to that Eventbrite, and that should link straight to an email to me as well. But I really look forward to seeing all your kids in the program. I know Isabel does as well. We had an absolute blast last time with all the students who joined our program, and it was really, really impressive with how much they learned over such a short time and how eager they were to actually answer all those questions. So now you've seen everything that can go wrong.
Way fewer glitches.
This is part of a live stream, right? This is how things go in real life. So once again, my name is Michael. This is Isabel. And we really hope to see your kids next week once the course starts. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us at any time. And we'll see you next week. All the best, everyone.